computer. Okay, I'm
Record
recording.
just went up.
Okay, and I'm going to start my stream, and then, uh-oh, you still see me?
Yep.
Okay, do you guys have the slideshow up?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, we are recording and we're live, so go ahead, Mr. Ireland.
Okay, I'd like to call the meeting to order of the regular board meeting for Greeneview Board of Education for Thursday, December 17th, 2020.
Suzanne Arthur,
Here.
Todd Ireland,
Here.
Scott Powers,
Present.
Angela Reagan,
Here.
Teresa Wallace.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Okay. Please join me for the pledge.
I've got the flag there.
I pledge allegiance
To
the flag
of the United States of America,
and to the
to the
republic
republic
for which it
that
stands,
stands
one
one
nation,
nation
under God, indivisible, with
with
liberty
liberty and
and
justice for all.
justice for all. Thank you. Okay. Were there any public comments submitted prior to the meeting?
Yeah, we have one public comment. I sent this to you in an email earlier, board, but I wanted to read this. I think it does a pretty good job of explaining some perspective as a parent of what they're experiencing right now, and I think that's fair for us to make sure we share with our folks. So this came from a parent of two students in our school district. Tiffany Atlee is the person whose email I forwarded to you. So the email reads, "Dear Greeneview School Board members, my name is Tiffany Atlee. My two sons attend Greeneview as open enrollment students. One's in the middle school building and one is in the elementary. First, I would like to thank you for the wonderful job you are doing. These are certainly difficult times, and I know firsthand how challenging it is to find an approach to COVID that will be both well received and beneficial for those involved. There are always going to be those who say we are doing too much and those who feel we're not doing enough. I'd like to take a moment to share how the two quarantine periods my older son endured and the virtual hybrid model has affected my family. I'm not intending for the following to sound like a complaint, but I want to bring to light some of the challenges the virtual hybrid model presents. Most importantly, it's the quality of learning, which is greatly diminished while both on quarantine and for the virtual days. I know things are not as engaged as they would be in class. They're unable to have questions answered at the time and as they're focused on the assignment, and they loses out on teachable moments that happen in the classroom. I've sat with my son through every assignment online and am substituting for what he is missing most, the teachers who are so amazing at what they do. As much as I would like my sixth grader to enthusiastically tackle his assignments while I'm at work, that simply is not the case. I can tell you from a parent of kids who are working at home, that's not the case when they're not being watched over by my daughter or I, my wife or I as well. So, I'm going to skip ahead here for a little bit. While he's never been thrilled about homework, the virtual days take on a whole new level and are taxing on the whole family. So my role as a mother and home worker help have turned into the teacher or the enforcer of the work. After my job, my hours at my job. So we're missing out on time with our sons that should be spent teaching on how to cook supper, play board games, and hanging out as a family. There have been many evenings of working on assignments before and after dinner, all the way up to bedtime. It's sad and it's frustrating at times. So the current hybrid model places an undue hardship on working families to provide childcare during the day. I can only imagine what a full virtual model would do. The irony is that the same group of people that this virus affects the most are often the same people who end up watching children while parents go to work, grandparents, and others in the high-risk category. So I'm also concerned with how effectively children with special needs or services are being reached and taught. Those families that have to leave children home all day long while the parents go to work, or children who rely on school lunches, and the decreased social interaction that kids crave. So while my personal preference is for students to return full-time and in person on January 4th, 2021, however, I recognize that there may be need for compromise. With the Christmas and New Year's holiday, people are going to spend time with extended family and increase the probability of spreading the virus. So I would suggest a 10-day quarantine starting with New Year's Day to January the 10th, 2021, with students returning full-time in person on January the 11th, 2021. This models what the CDC is currently allowing for post-COVID exposure. Virtual learning can be utilized during this time. Respectfully, Tiffany Atlee. If we were in person, she had requested to speak with the board, and so I told her that she could submit that to you, and I would make sure to read it aloud. And I've spoken to a lot of families that call, that email, that I run into in different places, and that's a common sentiment. It's challenging on our families. But I also think that where this starts is that we're doing a great job and we've kept our kids in school, and there's no substitute for teachers. And so I wanted to share that because I think it gives the board an understanding of the challenges parents are feeling and experiencing, and also some things that we consider all the time when we make these decisions. So are there any questions specifically about that you would want me to address, or anything that you want to comment on, board?
I think the letter was very well written. And on the other side of that, from a teacher perspective, it's not nearly as effective for the kids to be at home. And I can sympathize with the parents at what they're trying to do. And so I appreciated Mrs. Atlee's comments.
I did as well. Anybody else have anything to add or question?
I agree with Susie. I think that we're doing the best that we can, but it is tough. It's a no-win situation right now, and I think that everybody is doing all that they can to make sure that the kids get the education they so very much need. But I think we're all in agreement that kids do better in face-to-face instruction.
Okay, anything else there? Mrs. Atlee, thanks for your comments if you're watching. And some of those things that she brings up are very valid points and things that we'll discuss later on as I give some updates about where things are currently. So some of that will be addressed at a later time. So that was the only public comment we had. So we're on from there.
Okay, move to approve the agenda. Do we have any changes to the agenda? We do have an addendum.
Yeah, I sent that addendum to you today, board. This slideshow does have all of the addendum items already entered into it, so you should be able to follow along there. Okay. Jay, if there's something that I missed, make sure you let us know, okay?
All right.
I have a motion to approve agenda.
Move.
Second.
Is that Angela or Teresa?
It was Angie.
Angie.
Okay. All right. Angela Reagan,
Yes.
Todd Ireland,
Yes.
Scott Powers,
Yeah.
Teresa Wallace,
Yes.
Suzanne Arthur.
Yes.
Motion passed 5-0.
Okay, 3 treasurers report. 1, approve the minutes from the regular board meeting November 17th, 2020. 2, approve the November financial reports. 3, approve the Creation Fund 008-9002 Edwin C. Kingsbury Scholarship Fund to follow the guidelines outlined by the trustee. 4, accept the donation of $113,262.14 from Mark Hauser, trustee of the Edward C. Kingsbury Scholarship. 5, approve resolution accepting the Greene County Budget Commission rates commencing January 1st, 2021. A, the bond retirement fund, 2.28 mils, 529,000. And 6, discuss the industrial appraisal proposal. 7, authorize treasurer to advance funds in the amount of 30,000 from the general fund to the high school athletic fund, 300-9500. 8, approve the then and now to Miami Valley Educational Computer Association for internet connectivity in the amount of $5,928. 9, amend the fiscal year 21 appropriations as presented with the legal level of control at the fund level. And 10, accept the donation of $500 from the Jamestown Lodge for student fees. Have a motion?
I'll move.
Second.
Okay. Any discussion?
I wanted to talk about a couple things here. First, just to thank Mark Hauser and Edwin Kingsbury for his thoughtfulness for the Greeneview School District. So initially, he had set that up. He wanted to have $3,000 in interest per year or more to give out a scholarship. If this was pre-COVID, I said that was probably a pretty good estimate based on his dollar amount, but we are now post-COVID, so he did lower that to $1,000 or $1,500. We probably won't see the scholarship happen this year since we're just getting it now in December, but next year and for forever. So that is set up so that $113,000 is not going to be touched. It's only going to be interest that is paying scholarships.
For those of you that were Greeneview graduates, Mr. Kingsbury was a teacher here. For those of you who were
Yep.
not there. So
Yes,
I
was a student.
So was I.
yeah, so we got a phone call, and when he passed away, this was what he wanted part of his money to be used for. So we're thankful for those donations, and hopefully that will be a big help to kids going forward. So
Great things.
The bond retirement fund, you may not remember from last year, but the mills went down by 0.04 mils. That's just the bond is going down, and we charge less money to taxpayers when we need less money to pay off the bond. The industrial appraisal proposal, I sent that to all of you. Industrial appraisal is the company that does capital asset management. We give them an update every year, but they do recommend coming out and taking inventory in the district. They like to do it every 5 years, and I think it's been 8 or 9. So it's something for us to think about. They are scheduling for the summer already. That's why they reached out to me to see if we were interested. They knew that we were past due. I did have another company reach out this week that provides this service, and I asked them, I said, please just send us a proposal and let us know how much it's going to cost. It's not a significant cost, $3,900, but it's also, do we want to go ahead and sign up for this now for the summer, or so it's something to think about. I don't think we need to make a decision tonight, but I wanted to put that out there to see if you guys wanted to add that expense, or if we think we're okay with just going with what we have.
I have one question. Is this something that's mandated by the state of Ohio, or?
No, capital asset reporting is part of our gap statements. We have to report. They call it capital assets, but I would say everything that you own is actually a liability. It's your buildings are an asset, but when they break, you got to fix them. So you're trying to, our capital asset threshold is anything over $5,000 individually. So it's our big ticket items that we're keeping track of. You'd appreciate it. These companies help with the asset life You know, should you be, how long is a building good for, and things like that. And then when they come out and do these physical inventories, they're going around to make sure, you know, if this was under inventory 8 years ago, is it still there today? Because sometimes there are some smaller items and stuff that may get damaged, and people don't think to let you know. Oh yeah, we lost a tuba. So things like that. But it's not mandated that you have an inventory done every so often, but it's also not a bad idea either.
Okay.
May I ask a question that doesn't necessarily have to do with that? I just got a text message saying that this is not on the live stream or the district webpage or on YouTube, and they want to know why they can't watch us.
It says we're live streaming.
Yeah.
It says record and live on custom live streaming service.
So it's recorded. I guess what I would say to that person would be, there must be an error in that in the live stream. We will post the video as soon as we're done.
Okay, I'll make a note. Thank you. I'm sorry to interrupt.
No, that's all right. I guess while Jacob's doing this, I'm going to go grab my phone and see if I can figure out what's going on. So
I'm trying to go to the home page right now. It's like our home page isn't even working.
Maybe it has to do with something with our website.
There it goes. Any more questions or thoughts as far as having a physical inventory done? I mean, it would not, it's been so long at this point. Personally, I am not in a rush to get it done this summer, especially if everybody else is signing up to do it this summer. It could wait until next summer, not, 2022.
I would say treasurer's discretion.
Yeah,
Okay.
I'm definitely for Jacob. So I think it's a much needed thing to help us just kind of keep track of the assets.
I agree.
Okay. Well, I'll get that other proposal, and I'll let you guys know which one's better, and we'll go from there.
Thank you.
Thanks.
The advancing funds to the high school athletic fund. We did this last year around this time, and we had to pay those monies back to the general fund, and the athletic fund is back to being in the red. So this is just to get them out of the red. We know that our athletics this year, so they really were, they were back in the black at the end of last year. And able to pay back the general fund, but this year we're not seeing the revenues for athletics that we would expect in a normal year. I think you all understand why. So it's on there as an advance right now, but that is something that we may have to look into making a permanent transfer, because understandably athletic programs all over the state are losing money this year. When you can only have 2 people in the stands per athlete, it certainly cuts into your ticket sales. It's not a big margin to begin with. The amendments to the appropriations, I sent you guys those 2 amendments. The 034 fund, that is our Ohio School Facility Maintenance Fund. That's for our middle school and our high school. Whenever you do a project with them, they make you set up with funds to maintain those buildings. So you can't get their money without setting money aside to maintain them. This money has kind of been sitting around for a while. Wasn't being utilized very much prior to when I started here, and then we had the big HVAC project. I think that's 2 years ago now. And I started using almost all the 034 funds that we had been budgeted for to pay for part of that HVAC project. That's maintaining our buildings as they were when they opened. And I will say our new maintenance supervisor, Clint Connor, is some of those, we already increased this fund $45,000 this year. The high school had some large, they call them boilers, water heaters, whatever you want to call it. It's hot water for the building, but it also contributes to your HVAC system. So we had to replace some of those. They were 20 years old. They were causing some of our HVAC problems, we have found. The tanks being old, it's like an old water heater in your house. It gets nasty inside, and then you have particulates and stuff that get sent all around the entire system. So we had to replace those tanks. That was a large chunk of this money. The middle school had some little stuff. And then I would just say Clint is rather proactive and is addressing problems before they're, a lot of them before they're emergencies. We're going to talk about an emergency with the other permanent improvement fund. But some of the things, so the $45,000 is to address some of the issues that he wants to address now. There's some doors at the high school that need to be replaced. Again, it's been over 20 years, so that's a lot of opening and closing. So he wants to replace those. And then there's some updates that need to be done as well to make them fire safe. They have to shut during a fire. So so that's part of the $45,000. But, you know, I'm just giving him a cushion for some of the things that he sees and notices to proactively fix problems at the middle school and high school and maintain the buildings in the fashion when they were built. The $450,000 for the permanent improvement has to do with our lovely fuel tanks at the transportation department. We had a leak that was 2 weeks ago now.
Yeah, last Monday.
Yeah, not this Monday, but the Monday before. So we had, thought about it, but, so the fix for that, dealing with the cleanup and the removal of the old tanks, we do have a pollution policy. So we're going to run all the expenses through 003. Our insurance person says it's typically between $50,000 and $60,000. I think we're actually going to come in under that. And then we have the proposal from Prodigy for the new tanks and the electrical work that needs to be done out there. So that increase covers all of that out of our permanent improvement fund. I will say pollution policies are, the deductible is awful. So they say, the cleanup is usually between $50,000 and $60,000. Our deductible is $25,000. So we're getting half our money back on the cleanup. So that's a little bit frustrating, having an insurance policy and it doesn't really cover as much as you would hope when you need to use it. But that's
I went out by there today and they did a fantastic job there. That looks really good how they finished that up. So.
Yeah, and we were also really lucky. Part of the reason the cost is so low is that lovely clay soil that we have around here apparently stopped it from penetrating as deep as they would you would expect to happen in that amount of time and the amount of fuel that was lost. But that's the reason that the increases in the appropriations are the Permanent Improvement Fund 003 and then that 034 fund. So all of that expense for replacing the fuel tank and doing the cleanup and removing the old one is coming through the Permanent Improvement Fund.
Are we looking to put the extension on the building there too, along with the electrical?
Right now, what we were going to do is update the electrical so that we could do those. Could do some office work out there, but the first round of things doesn't include that, I don't believe.
Okay.
Because that would be, right now we got to focus on the tank issue, and hopefully we can do the tank slightly cheaper than that project cheaper. Now that the tanks aren't there, we actually have a pretty good sized concrete pad that was before kind of unused. So we may not need as much, as we originally thought on some of the concrete extensions. So, but we don't know until they start working on it. But right now, we can't do that work anyway until the summer. So we're going to hold off on that.
Yep. Okay.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Nope. Call roll.
Suzanne Arthur,
Yes.
Angela Reagan,
Yes.
Todd Ireland,
Yes.
Scott Powers,
yeah,
Teresa Wallace.
Yes.
Motion passed 5-0.
Okay, we have the superintendent's update, 1 COVID-19 update, the current situation, B, thought exchange community feedback, C, January 2021 return to school, 2, the bus garage fuel tank remediation update, and 3, the food service request for proposal RFP process.
Can you guys still see the slideshow on the screen?
Yes.
Yes.
yeah.
I clicked off of it there for a second to see if I could figure out what was wrong with the live stream, but I couldn't figure it out. So, okay, I'm going to go through this. I'm going to send you a full report of thought exchange stuff later, because I think would be worthwhile for you to read if you haven't, if you didn't participate. But I wanted to start by just sharing where we are currently. These are numbers that were updated as of today, this afternoon at around 2 o'clock. And this is always up to date on our website as much as I can keep it up to date on our website. Like I shared earlier with some of you, we will be heading into Christmas break by Monday of next week. There should be nobody that is currently positive or quarantined as a result of school exposure. So that's a good sign, hopefully, as they head into Christmas break, that we've slowed the progress down in the buildings. But currently we have 4 positive cases. 2 of those are students and 2 of those are staff that are out. But some of those actually get to come back to school tomorrow. So that number of 4 will go down to 2, I believe, tomorrow. This is one thing that's, I think, noteworthy to point out to you, and something we need to keep an eye on. But the notes at the bottom of this screen here, to date, our middle school boys and girls basketball teams have both had 14-day quarantines, and both of those were due to one kid being positive on the team, coming to practice or playing in a game, and then the whole team needed to quarantine. And because 7th and 8th grade practice together, when that's happened, then we've lost both of those teams for a 14-day period. So we've had several large quarantines related to middle school basketball. Tonight, as we speak, the middle school boys basketball team is playing their first games of the year as a result of this. They are just now getting to their first games. Our high school boys basketball team, the JV was quarantined first, the whole team, because they scrimmaged against somebody that had COVID. And then as soon as they were getting ready to come off of that quarantine, the varsity boys scrimmaged somebody that had COVID and needed to miss. So I want to give a shout out to Mr. Reinhardt and athletic directors everywhere. It is a constant daily struggle. Somebody that we're playing or that on our team, is sick, and people are missing games. And so they've been rescheduling games almost daily. So the best place to keep up with that is on the athletic department website. It's up to date every day, but that's something that's happening regularly. The majority of our quarantines in the last month that we've had school exposures have come through athletics. And obviously the health department takes those more seriously because there's no mask and they're breathing heavy and not socially distanced. So that's something we just want to keep an eye on. OHSAA continues to tell us that they're going to continue having sports. One thing to point out to you that we will be working through the Greene County Health Department with in the next 24 hours is today OHSAA sent out a memo to all schools that said the recent CDC guidelines and Ohio Department of Health guidelines that stated you could come back after 7 days if you have a negative test, or after 10 days of quarantine. They're saying that for athletic purposes, it still needs to be 14 days. That's a guidance, it's a suggestion, but that's once again because they're not wearing masks, they're exercising, they're not socially distanced. So we are working with the Greene County Public Health Department to try to come up with some information about how that's best played out, because we've allowed people to come back after 7 days with a negative test result within the last 2 weeks, because that was the rules we were operating under. One thing that's kind of frustrating is the rules always seem to be changing. So if you see that go out from us, that's because of a thing that OHSA put out today. One thing to point out, and this will be something to keep track of for a discussion a little bit, up until Thanksgiving. So we found out several people were positive over Thanksgiving, but that's not really due to Thanksgiving. Those happened before Thanksgiving. We had 17 total cases cumulative at that point in time as of the Saturday or Sunday of Thanksgiving. In the week and a half following Thanksgiving, we had 11 cases. So we had 17 prior to Thanksgiving, and we had 11 cases in the week and a half following Thanksgiving. So the Greene County Public Health has emails us regularly in the county, the superintendents. They're concerned by what's going to happen after Christmas break. We're just, if this was not unique to us in terms of where things were in terms of cases. So any questions about our cases, athletics, Thanksgiving spike, any of that stuff? Okay. One of the things that we put out some information last week, 2 weeks ago, to our community asking for their input. I really like this thought exchange, by the way. It gave us some really good feedback. We had 551 people participate. So this was shared with our parents. We have a little bit over 1,000 parents, or probably a little bit less than 1,000 parents actually, because of multiple kids. And 551 participated. There was really good participation with our folks. That was helpful. Several questions I just wanted to highlight here for you. How did they think our current in-person learning at the time we were in person? 54% extremely well, 28% said fair but not perfect. So what is that? 82% of our people that filled out the survey thought that we were doing a good job with how school was going. Only 1%, 6 people said we weren't doing a very good job. I think the other questions, 32 that could have been virtual parents, 15 they weren't sure, they have an opinion, 32 that felt like we needed to make a decision to change something because schools were no longer safe. So I took this to think that we are doing a pretty good job. Our community thought we were doing a good job. 82% felt comfortable with how things were going. Our safety protocols in terms of masks, social distancing, procedures, things like that, 75% of our folks thought we were doing a good job, that those were effective. 63% felt like they were extremely informed. We've worked really hard to communicate regularly with people, but that's 97% that feel like they know what's going on for the most part. I liked that number. I wish that the extremely informed would be a little bit higher, but that's because I feel like we've been working hard to keep people up to date on what's happening. This is a little bit blurry, and I'll send it to you better later, but these were the top thoughts. When the computer generated the top thoughts, these were the things they felt like were the highest ranked. Number one, keep us informed and plenty of time to make arrangements for our kids. When we switched from in-person to hybrid, I tried to give 48 hours notice at least from the time that the health department called me. I did want to say this out loud to make sure I tell all of you, I've spoken to you about this, but I did receive a call from Melissa Howe, the director of Greene County Public Health, And the concern was not what was happening in the buildings. It was about what numbers they were seeing in our community. And I was monitoring that, but they obviously can see that a day or so ahead of me. And if you look at the last 14 days, we've had like 66 cases in the last 14 days in our zip code, and 145 in the last 30 days. So roughly half of our zip code's cases have come in the last month since this began. So they requested a change, didn't mandate it, but when the health department requests that you consider doing something different, I felt like it was the right thing to do. The second highest rated thing here, it says ranked fourth, but the second and the third ranked were about communication also. So I tried to cut out some duplicates in here as I shared this. The majority of staff is doing a great job to take care of kids and keep them safe. I appreciate those people. And it talks about the reoccurrence. Over and over again, we heard from the community, the parents on this. They're pleased with how our staff is working to keep kids safe. They're pleased with how in-school was going. I think kudos to our people for doing a great job with that. The third comment there, that was the sixth ranked one, was a new thought. So grateful for the thought and effort that's gone into planning and execution of the school year. I know it's not easy. Everything in our experience has been good this year, and hearing what other parents are going through, I keep being so grateful my kids get to go here. I am thankful for our people that came up with a thoughtful plan and have executed it. I think we've done a good job keeping our kids in the building and trying to do the best for kids. If you look at what's happened around us, we've been in the building as longer than anybody else, and that's the best place for kids to be, going back to that letter earlier. This one is a thought of a parent who's been quarantined. The process was smooth and effective. Our principals have done a great job of communicating with families, even on the weekend, coming in on Sundays and making phone calls and tracking down kids. That way they don't show up on Monday morning when they're not supposed to be there. So I want to just praise them for their efforts in that. So those were the top thoughts. I thought it was something worth sharing. A couple things that, I'm sorry this is blurry again, but one of the biggest themes, so these themes appear, the biggest one was about communication, right? Give us enough time. Give us enough time to plan, be open and honest about what's going on, and just keep us informed. Those were, big feedback pieces there. They were thankful for what's going on. I take a lot of pride in that second comment down there at the bottom. Great job, Greeneview. As a parent who has a kid at the high school and a middle school in another district, Greeneview is making strides and doing a much better job. It's not a competition, right? But I take great pride in the fact that we're able to do the right thing for kids, and hopefully we can continue to do that. So those were some of the key thoughts. And then the overwhelming thing here, and I think it's important to point out to you, the overwhelming thing that came up is while maybe cases are rising, people are concerned, they first recognize the best place for kids to be is in the building for a lot of different reasons, social, emotional. The teachers are the best teachers. It's safe for kids where home may not be safe. A couple of things that we've tried to do while we've gone hybrid and will continue to do is that we've sent lunches home for kids on the last day they're in school. So like, for example, my children are in school on Tuesday and Friday. So when they left on Tuesday, they took home meals for Wednesday and Thursday home with them. They're in my refrigerator. Every kid in the district has access to that food. And that's something we're trying to make sure, because we know that that's a big need for families. The second thing is our lowest special education population. So we have a middle school self-contained classroom. There's 5 or 6 kids. They're already really socially distant to begin with. The high school, we have several the same way. That the best place for them to be is in the building, and really because of their cognitive functions and things, online didn't work that well. We've actually been able to keep them in the building 4 days a week in the hybrid plan. So we're trying to help do the best things even for our most vulnerable learners and those special ed populations And we're working to see if there's possibilities to do that at the elementary as well. We just haven't figured out the best way to do that yet because they're intermingled a little bit more there. But our parents want us to stay in school, need us to stay in school for a lot of different reasons. And our commitment is to do that as long as it's possible and safe. But going back to the health department requested this change, and that's where we're at. So I want to share that with you a little bit there. I also want to thank the board. The ThoughtExchange has been really good, I think, in getting feedback, and people use it. The more we use it, the better. And so thanks for spending the money to get that piece. Any thoughts from anybody that participated in the ThoughtExchange or that read comments? Anything that anybody wanted to point out there for questions, I guess?
No, I think it just goes to show us that this is a great tool, that we're not in a bubble. We've got folks now that can communicate back and forth, and we get to see what folks are thinking, and I think it's just a great tool, and I'm glad I'm so glad we invested in it.
Yeah. So I think Teresa's the one that saw this at OSBA. So thanks, Teresa, for pushing that envelope. It was a really good tool. The other thing is, I think it gives people the ability to share what they're thinking and feeling, right? And then also there are things that rose to the top that the majority of people agreed with, and other things that get pushed to the bottom. Is that's more your thought, right? You get a chance to share it. I read all of them. I will tell you, and I want to share it. I read all of them. I think it's important to do that for me to see what's out there. And I am encouraged by what was valued high by the people doing the survey, because that rose to the top. And I think it hopefully speaks more to the group thought, right? And not individual voices. So I'll send you a full report. I'm going to send the staff the full report as well, so they can have some of that input. So anything else on ThoughtExchange before I switch the page here? Okay, this is all information that I wanted to have available for you. So I think it's important to share this for you to have, and I would love any input you have on this before we go forward. But Greene County Public Health, Melissa Howell, has communicated, like I said, she regularly communicates with the superintendents. They're concerned about the spread of the virus over break. Based on what they saw following Thanksgiving. I think it's fair for us to look at our numbers, right? 11 cases in a week and a half following Thanksgiving, to extrapolate that out. We will see an increase after Christmas as well. They haven't mandated anything for us after Christmas, but I wanted to show you what the rest of the county was doing. Bellbrook Schools is going to be hybrid, which is their 50% model. They've been in that quite a bit this year. The Career Center, that's what they've been doing, juniors and seniors on different days. So this is for the first 2 weeks following Christmas break is the timeline that we're speaking about here. Xenia, Fairborn, Yellow Springs, and the ESC will all be doing remote virtual learning for those 2 weeks at least. Xenia, Fairborn, and Yellow Springs aren't going to be opened up for a while. They're going to be virtual learning with all students for a while. Cedarville and Beaver Creek have a mixture. Their high school and middle schools are going to be virtual for the first week and then transition back into hybrid. And then their elementaries are going to be hybrid for the first 2 weeks after Christmas break as well. That's what I want. I mean, that's what we're seeing across the county. The other thing, and here's the reason why, the 10-day quarantine period, which Mrs. Atlee referred to in her letter, I talked about earlier, it's now down from 14 to 10, a quarantine period. So January 4th, when we're supposed to return to school, is 11 days after Christmas Day. Now Christmas Day is on a Friday, so there'll be gatherings all weekend. I'm certain, like my family will choose to get together probably on Saturday with somebody, trying to do so safely and distanced. But that's 11 days. January 4th, when we were supposed to come back to school, is only 3 days after New Year's Eve, which is when people will start showing symptoms. So in trying to mitigate a positive case, we can't stop people from gathering with their families, and I'm not suggesting that, right? But to try to mitigate the impact of one positive case, there are several ideas on what to do. If we were to come back on January 4th, I don't have a crystal ball. I can't predict, but I have a pretty good guess based off of Thanksgiving. We're going to come back on January 4th. If we return in person full speed ahead, we will be dealing with quarantines and force us to a place where I think we would end up having to change our model because we would have so many kids in and out. That's a risk you run with opening up 100% in person is we would be forced to then maybe look at closing. In the last week, we were close to closing our elementary school and making it go virtual. At one point in time, we had 5 or 6 cases in that building after Thanksgiving. So we were able to keep it open until Christmas, but I don't know that we could do that long term. The other thing is an option to go 2 weeks of hybrid. And speaking with our administration, in-person is better than hybrid, and hybrid is better than virtual. The more contact we have with kids, the better.
Yes.
And so looking at that, that 2 weeks of hybrid, it would be an option. January 4th and January the 11th would, those 2 weeks would get us out past the 10 days of, New Year's Eve and Christmas. And if somebody is positive, hopefully we don't have to quarantine people.
I guess I've got a question here. We're focusing on Christmas Day. I think people in general are probably going to be a little bit looser with their activities on New Year's Eve. Shouldn't we be looking at New Year's Eve?
I think so. And so I guess there's several ways to handle it. Scott, I completely agree with you, right? So one of the options would be, and I think that's why we're seeing schools in the county start hybrid or virtual, is because they know that those first 2 weeks are going to be challenging with kids, getting sick over New Year's Eve and not knowing it. One idea that we kicked around as administration, instead of putting the onus on virtual learning, what if we extended Christmas break for a week and then just extended the end of school out a week? That way, when we return, we're further away from those dates. It's on the screen. I got to talk about it. It's here. But I also would say that was met with some resistance from our administration, just because I think in hybrid learning, it's pretty sparse. We're talking 6 kids, 7 kids in a classroom. They can be pretty spread out. And so, but if we extend Christmas break out a week, we're not stopping people from hanging out together. All we're doing is stopping them from coming back together, right? We're probably even encouraging more so them to spend time together. So I think absolutely we have to look at New Year's Eve as a potential spot for that, which would mean that it doesn't make sense to do anything for 1 week. It really makes sense to do things for 2 weeks. Susie, you're a teacher. You've got a classroom of kids. What are thoughts on, what would be an easier transition back from Christmas break? And or any input you would have on that?
Well, the hybrid, my district has been in hybrid for 7 weeks. And it's been horrible for parents, for teachers, for kids. I want to start back full time, but I don't want to start back full time and do that for a week and then go hybrid. I would rather be a little bit cautious at the onset and either start a week late or do hybrid for a couple of weeks to make sure that we can get back in full capacity. So I think it's probably wise for us not to be full capacity January 4th. I think we need to either do hybrid for a couple of weeks or start a week later to increase the chances that we'll be able to do in-person learning on a full-time basis. I think Greeneview has done a fabulous job to be able to do it most of the first 2 quarters. I'm impressed that we've done it most of the first 2 quarters.
I think our goal is to get back to the normal schedule, as you know, as smoothly as possible. And I think the challenge we have, like the middle school participation during the week and a half that they were virtual, you know, like 25 to 30% of their students didn't engage at all that week. You know.
Yes, that's very, very common. I would say at least that percentage, the 7 weeks that we were doing it, we had kids in, I had kids in every class, about that many, about 25 or 30% in every class that didn't do anything at home. So,
yeah.
If we go back, if we push it out a week, extend the week vacation, have we gotten any guidance on the state testing this year? And what does that do to our teachers' curriculum and getting our students up to speed?
The guidance is that we don't have an answer yet. As of right now, the state is still requiring end of course assessments for students because the federal government did not provide a waiver for Ohio. I think there's some thought that maybe that may change with a different education secretary in office. But as of right now, it still looks like we have to, you know, take the end of course assessments and state testing. The other thing that I would say there, Scott, about that is we have 1 week after Christmas break that finishes first semester. And so, you know, we have some semester long classes where that matters to try to keep them balanced. But by moving school back a week, we forced that to go back, you know, a week later also. So we would be in a situation where if we return, say we take the week off, right? And the reason I'm suggesting on this slide here, that's not, you know, I'm not asking to vote on that, but that's one option that we have considered, because then it wouldn't put the responsibility on parents, you know, hey, do virtual learning for this week. It would also, you know, extend that out, but we would still need to come back and finish first semester. So it just pushes that that timeline back even further. So
I think that no week or that no school for that first week. I mean, you look at that 1/11 date, that gives you 11 days to show symptoms from the last, let's say, event, and that be New Year's Eve. So between Christmas and then, most of those symptoms are going to start showing up. So I would say that maximizes your chance of eliminating people coming back that might be sick.
yeah, and I think I also, I mean, I threw this out there, but I think it's our job to kind of consider, you know, the burden that places on families as well as 1 more week of trying to find childcare or those sort of things.
Or somebody that may have a vacation scheduled right after school, you know, the next week. So, you know, there might be some of that.
Memorial Day. I will tell you that our building principals that I spoke to this afternoon felt like we have done a good job with hybrid. We are a small enough district, right? And we changed our lunch schedule at the beginning of the year. So now in hybrid, we should have 3 or 4 seats in between every kid at lunch even. You know, our buses are less populated. They're confident that they could keep kids separated and from a safe distance, even in the hybrid model, you know, following. So for what it's worth, that's their piece of feedback there as well.
Mm-hmm.
Other thoughts or questions or comments on returning from Christmas break?
Now, the Career Center is going back full-time when?
On Tuesday, the 19th is the scheduled right now. So everybody is saying at this point in time that their return from Christmas break is a 2-week phase in. So Career Center, Bellbrook, Cedarville, Beaver Creek, those schools are all saying we're going back in person with students on Tuesday the 19th, the day after Martin Luther King Jr. Day. that would be our plan too, right? I'm suggesting here something for 2 weeks to keep them, separated. And then our plan would be not based on numbers, right now, right? We're coming back on Tuesday. Now, obviously, if that changes in terms of cases, we evaluate that later. But we would look at returning in full on the 19th of January. So, other thoughts, comments, questions about the return?
I think that makes
No.
sense. As far as Scott's comment about curriculum and what that does with anytime you're hybrid, you're not going to cover as much. I'm one topic behind. I would typically have covered 8 chapters at this point, and I've covered 7 because virtually, I've been teaching hybrid for 7 weeks, and I really only get 2 days a week of teaching. So no, the hybrid, you can't get as much done with the hybrid, but I think we stand a better chance of being able to be in person full capacity if we phase in those 2 weeks.
Sorry about that. So I agree. I think our best chance of getting open and staying open is to phase in. Right now, we're scheduled to return on January 4th with all of our students. I've heard, hearing from you, some sort of phase-in plan is probably best. Is that a fair statement from the board?
Yes.
Yes.
I think so. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I think in talking with our administrative team today that our best option, and it gives us a deadline, right, is that 2 weeks of hybrid, because it allows us to have 2 days a week where we're with the kids, but we keep them separated. Another point that was brought up earlier by one of the administrators is we're probably not getting phone calls over Christmas break letting us know that people are positive for COVID. We won't know those things until they return. And so, this gets us the ability to deal with that as well. So I would like the board's permission to communicate that we're going to have 2 weeks of hybrid learning following Christmas break. Are we all okay with that?
Yes.
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 Okay. Thank you. Thanks for your thoughts and input on that. I'll go through these 2 things. It's not too long here, but I just want to say out loud, have it on the record, get it through things. Last Monday, we discovered that we had a failure of our diesel tank. I sent you guys a photo of that. We called in the company, the Hartley Oil, on Monday. They came out and they had a vacuum. They sucked it all up. They were able to suck up 283 gallons of diesel fuel. It was all contained inside of our burn. And we immediately began working with Prodigy Building Solutions. They were, discussing tanks with us before. And so we knew they had some experience with that. And they got an environmental company involved. And that company provided them with guidance. And so in the next couple of days, last week, by Wednesday, the tanks were removed. They were able to figure out what caused it. We had a hole about the size of a pinky on the bottom of the diesel tank. And so they took some photos for Jay to give to the insurance company. We are going to be able to claim the tank failure and cleanup as an insurance claim. It won't cover all of it, covers about half of it. The tank is completely failed, and they had to remove the gas tank in order to resolve the issues with the diesel tank. And so we had them take both of those out. We were using pretty out-of-date pumps, and then did not have the ability to monitor gas and diesel and what vehicles it was going into. And so we've been working with them to come up with a new solution for fueling. In order to address new tanks and new pumps, we have to update the electricity inside the bus garage, because that panel is out of date. And so the new business item tonight for you is about updating electricity to our bus garage, running new electricity out to newly installed concrete pads for the new tanks, new pumps for the tanks, because and they will have a system to be able to track fleet fuel and what vehicle it's going into. Also, if you take a key fob from a bus and you put it up there, it will only dispense diesel. It will not let you dispense gas. Or if you take a key fob from a truck and you clock in to do that, it will only let you dispense gas instead of diesel, which is important because we've had some failures with that at times in the past. While they're doing that electricity, we need to run new electricity to the fence that is out there that our buses plug into during the winter for the engine block heaters. We have a new system out there that kicks on based off of temperatures, but the wiring to that and the wiring from that needs to be updated when we're putting new panels in. So we have a fairly expensive project, but the reality is it has to be done. In the meantime, we're filling up our tanks, our vehicles at the Marathon Station. We have a system there for that, and they're in the process of bringing some portable tanks in for diesel, and they'll deliver about 1,000, I think it's 1,000 gallons at a time. So that way we don't have to go to the gas station every time we need to fill up a bus. So they were able to mitigate the soil, and they only had to go down about 3 feet, which is really good, because we had really good hard clay out there and it didn't travel. So Todd, who's dealt with some contaminants before, 3 feet's pretty good.
Very good.
Yeah, so that was a benefit to us.
Under 50,000 is a great number there. If they can do that with the reports and everything, we could consider ourselves lucky.
Yeah, we communicated with the EPA, self-reported it, and as a result of having a spill, we now have to write a plan to make sure what would we do in the future if we have a spill again.
Yes.
But with new tanks, we don't have that problem, but that's
I can get you a template for that.
well, the company that did the soil mitigation, they did all the testing, they're gonna take care of it for us. It's a couple extra $1,000.
That's perfect.
They know what they're doing, so it's better to pay them. So okay, and then any questions about the diesel tank issue?
No.
When Isaac says the pumps were outdated, they're like Antiques Roadshow style.
Yes.
They are very
There's a
out.
Phillips 76 one out there that you have to hand crank to get the numbers to go back to the triple zeros. So we saved that one in case we want to sell it online or something, Yeah. No. So they are very much out of date. This is something that while we have the issue, we're going to take care of and do it the right way. So the next thing, and this is just to make you aware, we're required by law every 5 years to go request for proposal. We work with AVI for a food service. So we contract out for them management and supervision of our food service program. We're up. It's our turn to go out to bid. And bids are due January 6, 2021. Yeah, Jay?
I was going to say, you had asked about, what is our administrative cost right now for AVI. So right now we are paying AVI about $200,000 a year, but a lot of that is actually cost of goods sold. So we're spending, it is roughly $90,000 in administrative, and they're one manager that's out here on a day-to-day basis.
So one of the things that Jay and I thought was important for us to do is our due diligence to see, is that still the best option? Or what would happen if could we self-operate and do it more economically than that proposal? So at the same time, we have posted a job for a food service supervisor. and we're looking for qualified applicants of that. I feel like if we can do so and we can get somebody that is, experienced and knows what they're doing, then it may be worthwhile for us to do. If not, then obviously AVI takes care of all of our reporting. I mean, that's why we have them, is to make sure we're doing things in compliance, but we want to do our due diligence. So that's why I've asked you to approve a job description and a salary schedule for a food service supervisor, is to do that process. So the deadline for applications is the end for us, for our position, is the end of December. So we left it open for 3 or 4 weeks. The deadline for people to give us their bids is January the 5th. And so hopefully we'll have some information around the same time there to present to the board in January. Okay.
When would the food service supervisor position start if we hired one?
Say when?
When would it start?
It will be next school year. We'd start it in August.
Okay.
Yeah, and that's how it's posted, to start August 1 or July 1, whatever the date of those contracts usually are, but it will be next school year.
Okay.
So Isaac, are you considering or thinking that self-operation again may be a viable option this time around?
We did this 5 years ago. For those of you that were on the
Yeah.
board, we looked at it back then. And at the time, we just didn't feel like we had the right candidates to be able to take that over and self-operate. I will also tell you, AVI has done a good job. Besides, COVID and things, our numbers are really good with them, have been for a while. There's a risk, obviously, in self-operate. If you don't have the right person, they're not ordering the right way. There's some buying power with AVI that we'd have to consider as well. But the other thing that I am looking into is we belong to the Southwest Ohio EPC, and there are schools that self-operate and they purchase, milk and bread and commodities and things through the EPC, which is a purchasing cooperative as well that can help drive some of those costs down. So I think it may be viable if the right candidate exists, is the way to answer that question.
Yeah, that's fair.
Anything else on that item?
Nope.
Okay, that's it for me.
Okay, let's go to new business. Want to approve the agreement with Prodigy Building Solutions in the amount of $37,300 for the tank removal and soil remediation project at Greeneview Bus Garage. To approve 2021 annual OSBA membership dues in the estimated amount of $4,760. 3, establish as the date of and 6:45 p.m. for the tax budget hearing, January organizational meeting and regular Board of Education meeting. And 4, appoint the following board member to serve as temporary chairperson for the January organizational meeting. So what date do we want to, okay, we'll go back. 5, approve the letter of intent with Prodigy Building Solutions in the amount of $373,376 for the bus garage fuel tank and electrical project. And 6, approve the new food service supervisor job description and salary schedule. Have a motion?
Move.
Okay, I'll second. That was first.
Okay, so
Legally, the board meeting has to be before January the 15th. So it'd have to fall in that first 2 weeks of January. Jay and I would like to make sure you guys are aware. I mean, obviously, if things aren't great in January, but we're required by law to make sure that we have 2 board meetings a year where the public can address the board. Now, we've been giving them opportunities to do that, but we really think it's important to make sure that we have a meeting early in the school year where the public could attend and address the board. So we think it's probably important to have that meeting at the high school in the auditoria to give us a chance to spread out on stage and give them a chance to spread out at the tables. But we need to have it before January 15th. So Not sure what works for your guys' schedules in those 2 weeks.
I would say the 12th or the 14th.
Yeah, my schedule's pretty open.
I would prefer not to do Thursdays if possible, because that's going to be the same dates as the Career Center meetings. No, just kidding. Backwards. Wednesdays. What am I? I'm second Wednesday, third Thursday? Okay, my bad.
Well, and this meeting is always is typically in the second week of January because we have to have it before the 15th.
So that would be the 13th.
So the 14th is that Thursday, Angela, if you're
Right, so that's going to be when the Career Center organizational meeting is on the 14th.
Are you sure?
I thought you
Is
said
it not on a Wednesday?
That's why I said I'm not sure if it's Wednesday or Thursday. I'm getting confused. I think Career Center is second Wednesday. Our board meeting's third Thursday, right?
Right.
Correct.
So it's going to be on Wednesday the 13th.
13th.
So you are correct. I'm backwards.
So the 14th would probably work for you?
Yes.
Scott, you said the 12th or the 14th worked.
I'm good either one of those.
Todd, are you going to be able to meet on either one of those days?
Yeah, I'm going to be in Florida the week before, so it would have to be the week of the 11th. So I'm good the 14th.
Does that work for everybody?
Yes.
Yep, I'm good.
Sounds great. We'll set the 14th, and then we need a nominee for the chairperson that starts the meeting.
I'll do it.
Can always count on Mr. Powers.
Thanks, Scott.
all right. Is there any more that needs to be discussed there?
So I said this is the last 5 and 6 were added. Those are 2 things we just discussed on the issue before.
And that's a great price for the fuel tanks, electrical project, and everything. I think Prodigy's done this pretty well on that. Just knowing what I know about those prices.
Okay. Suzanne Arthur,
Yes.
Angela Reagan,
Yes.
Todd Ireland,
Yes.
Scott Powers,
Yeah.
Teresa Wallace.
Yes.
Motion passed 5-0.
Okay, let's go to personnel. Accept the deduct in pay for Jane Aaron Holt, teacher, November 12th and 13th, 2020. Approve the changes to Thomas Mandrick's contract for the 2020-2021 school year. Accept the resignation of Bob Akins as head boys soccer coach. Approve the following classified substitutes for 2021. Custodians, Susan McCauley, Joanna Casho, Jessica Coey, Alan Pippin, Tammy Crum, Karen Hefner, Brooklyn Dean, Tony Goodbar, Steve Morris, Rebecca Vogel, Nikki Butts. Bus drivers, Nikki Butts, Dalton Pate, Jay Brandenburg, Tony Goodbar, Audra Evans. Mechanic, Steve Morris. Approve the following classified substitutes for 2021. Secretaries, Karen Lane, Heather Lucas, Joanna Casho, Jessica Coey, Casey Payton, Carlina Mikesell, Kirsten Durth. Aides, Kirsten Durth, Carlina Mikesell, Lee Battaglia, Karen Lane, Heather Lucas, Joanna Casho, Jessica Coey, Penny Van Tress, Casey Payton, Anna Betts. Cooks, Margie Bookwalter, Joanna Casho, Jessica Coey, Penny Van Tress, Tammy Crum, Casey Payton, Carlina Mikesell. Approve the following certified substitutes for 2021 teachers: Linda Armlovich, David Bates, Lee Battaglia, Shelley Betsy, Heather Brooks, Rita Canny, Richard Castle, Allison Corey, Jane Cross, James Durwester, Christine Irwin, Brian Gale, Dean Gordon, Bill Green, Heather Kasner, Carolyn Kugler, Angie Lowe, Cody Lucas, Heather Lucas, Cindy Mash, Mark Mash, Barbara McCowan, John Morrison, Kathy Pace, Amy Powers, Kim Reiber, Mandy Rose, Faye Sessler, Jenny Smith, Randy Tebbing, Linda Thomas, Lori Young, Ray Young, and Jay Sherritt. 6, approve the termination of Catherine Kramer effective November 27th, 2020. Have a motion?
I'll move.
Todd,
I'll
thanks.
second.
Sorry.
Mhm.
Todd, thanks for reading all those. We are required by law to approve substitutes every calendar year. And so these are the folks we've had so far this year, and we needed to approve them so we could use them in the new year. So that's everybody we've got. Any questions about the other things that were on that list?
I wanted to point out the changes to Thomas Mandrick's contract for 2020-2021. I put that out there as increasing from 70 days to 140 days. He was close to using all of his 70 days prior to Christmas break. I mean, we're obviously not there yet. There was a lot of catch up that had to be done from the 3-month hiatus at the end of last school year. So a lot of assessments that got pushed back due to COVID. He also works from home a lot of times. He's doing a lot of paperwork. So wanted to make sure you guys were okay with the 140 days. I don't anticipate him using all of that, but I think that gives us a safe cushion to make sure he doesn't go over his contracted days.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, he definitely was front loaded because of the catch up there. I think we'll see that slow down, but that seems to be working also with him working as he is and then having some coverage with somebody else. So.
Okay, no other questions? Call the roll.
Suzanne Arthur,
Yes.
Angela Reagan,
Yes.
Todd Ireland,
Yes.
Scott Powers,
Abstain.
Teresa Wallace.
Yes.
Motion passed 4-0.
Okay, executive session to consider the employment and compensation of a public employee or official. Do I have a motion?
I'll move.
Move.
We're going to take Angela as number 1.
I'll go to.
Okay. Suzanne Arthur,
Yes.
Angela Reagan, you
I
muted
think she's
yourself.
on mute.
Sorry, I hit it twice. Yes.
Okay. Todd Ireland,
Yes.
Scott Powers,
Yeah.
Teresa Wallace.
Yes.
Motion passed 5-0. We're going into executive session at 8:21.
And we will have no further business after executive session.
While we have you all, we plan on being in person January 21st. We are sorry about the live stream not happening, but hopefully this will be posted momentarily.
January 14th, not the 21st.
January 14th.
January 14th, yes. Live and in
Yes.
person.
I will get that. I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording and the sharing here, board, so we can go into executive session. There is no business afterwards.